introduce my team here from certification unit, Damia, Amin, Pak Anki, the manager of upstream, and Shazali, where we will support all of the question and answer and the presentation throughout this webinar. So I am pleased to invite Shazali for the welcoming remark. Over to you, Shazali.
Hi, thanks Nadia for the introduction. Good afternoon, good evening everyone. From Kuala Lumpur, it's 10:07 p.m. at the moment. Good morning for some of you. Maybe you are just started your day, and maybe good afternoon for some of our colleagues, maybe in different part of the world. Welcome to the webinar. I think this is the first session that we are doing RSPO certification system socialization and harmonization. I believe this is very important session that we are trying to share the latest updates on the new RSPO certification system as we just get the endorsement of this document back in November 2025. So as agreed by the Standing Committee that this document is undergoing a 6 months transition. So the effective date will be on the 14 May 2026. That will also be explained by my colleague afterwards throughout the session. Um, and this is very important because the certification system sets the foundation of the process and the requirement that need to be completed or that need to be comply by the certificate holder and also by the certification body when conducting the audit. And it also become a main reference for the accreditation body ASI when they conduct a compliance assessment or when they conduct the witness assessment or head office assessment for the certification body. So I hope that this session or this webinar will be very helpful for you in terms of implementation. Feel free to ask question. We do have a Q&A session. You can utilize the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. And our team here, my team here, Sasongko, Anki, Diego, Damia, Amin, we will try to provide a response to your questions. But towards the end of the presentation later, we are also having a live um, discussion if you have any question. With regards to the translation, we apologize for unable to provide interpretation for the colleagues in Latin America that speak Spanish, or maybe our colleague in Africa that speak French. Unfortunately, we are not able to to provide the interpreter because of some limitation, especially in terms of the time. However, we have Spanish native speaker here, Diego, that are going to help us with interpreting your question or help us to understand your question. So please feel free to put your question in Spanish if you have any question. I believe Diego will be able to take it and explain accordingly. And some of our technical representative also in this call as well. So please feel free to ask your question in your language that you think especially like Thailand that we are not able to understand or maybe French. So we will try to answer accordingly. Otherwise, we will just answer in English. So again, one more time, I would like to emphasize, it is impressive attendees, now 229 participants in the house. But I would like to emphasize that this session is actually on the certification system document for principle and criteria and independent smallholder standards. And it does not cover the supply chain certification system document. Yeah. So if it is not fully relevant to you or maybe you are not compliant to PNC or ISH standard, please treat this as additional valuable information sharing for you. Otherwise, it will be a new topic for discussion. Yeah, I would like to stop there. I will stop there and gonna hand over the session to Nadia again to start the presentation. So I hope you enjoy the webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shazali, for the welcoming remarks and also the brief explanation on this webinar. Okay, so without further ado, I would like to start with the agenda first. Perhaps we can move to the next slide, please. Okay, let me start with the agenda today. We will first look at the update on the RSPO certification system for PNC and ISH standard. After that, we will briefly go through the structure of the document because the understanding of the structure is important before going into the detail, right? So for this part one, session two, we will focus on the four main topics. First, the management impartiality. Second, the unit of certification and scope management. Third one is the certification cycle and audit approach. And then next is the pre-certification activities and audit planning. So I will be covering for the first and second topics, and the rest will be covered by Pa Anki. Okay. So we will conclude the Q&A session. So if you have any question, you can post it in the Q&A box, or you can wait until the end of the session because we're gonna have a Q&A session afterwards. Okay, next slide. All right, at this point, we move into the update section. This part of the slide deck help participants to understand where the RSPO certification system 2025 document sits in terms of the endorsement and the implementation. Okay, next. As shown on the slide, the RSPO certification system for PNC and ISH Standard 2025 were endorsed by RSPO Standard Standing Committee (SSC) on 14 November 2025. The document became effective 6 months after the endorsement, which is 14 May 2026. Until 13 May 2026, certification body and the accreditation body must continue using the current cert system, which is the 2020 version. From 14 May 2026 onward, the 2025 document become the effective document, which is to be fully effective. All right. So you can refer to the item 4.1 of the announcement. So we basically post an announcement in our website. If you don't have time to, you didn't manage to visit our website, so please do so because we provide a detail of explanation on the certification system implementation in the transition period as well. All right. Next slide. All right, so let's move to the structure of the RSPO certification system for PNC and ISH 2025. Okay, because the structure itself tells us how RSPO want the certification process to be understood and implemented. So the certification system document is structured into six sections, okay, followed by the annexes 1 until 10 annex. So there are additional annexes to the certification system document 2025. The main section covers scope, normative reference, accreditation body requirement, certification body requirement, resources requirement, and so on. You may refer to the document you can download on our website because in our website there are few version French, Spanish, and other language that you can have uh, the different version other than English. Okay. Um, Yeah, so this is the table of content of the RSPO, PNC, and ISH certification system document. As I mentioned earlier, there are 6 sections with the annexes, with the additional annexes. All right, you can download this from our website. All right. This is important because the document is not only about the audit activities, it's broader than that. It cover full system, what standard apply, who can conduct the certification, how competence and impartiality are managed and maintained, how the audit and certification cycle must be managed. All right. So that is the table of content is all about. Next slide. All right. So all the requirements are applicable for PNC and ISS certification unless it is stated otherwise. One important message from the deck is that unless the document explicitly says otherwise, the requirement generally apply to both PNC and ISH certification. Okay, the presentation give example of these phrases to look for, such as not applicable for ISH standard, only applicable to ISH certification, or wording that signals specific implementation different between PNC and ISH. Okay, next. All right, some of the requirements that are required different implementation between PNC and ISH certification will have statement below, not limited to. For example, for certification against ISH standard, the applicability of this requirement for certifications against the RSPO ISH shall be subjected to, or for an RSPO ISH audit. So that is explicitly mentioned in the document. You have to be careful when you're reading the certification system document. All right. This is very important reading principle. Participants should, you should not assume that requirement is only for PNC or only for ISH unless the document clearly states so. In fact, the document itself says that the applicable standard under certificate system are the RSPO PNC and the RSPO ISH standard. Okay, the certification assessment must cover relevant indicator and applicable system requirement. Okay, let's move on to the next slide, please. We now enter to the first technical topic, which is section 4.7, management of impartiality. This is a foundational part of certification system because the credibility of RSPO certification depend on the independence and the objectivity of the CB and the audit personnel. Okay, next. So the structural oversight for impartiality. This slide actually can be explained as the governance layer of impartiality. The certification system document requires each CB establish a specific independence committee as part of its procedure for identifying and managing conflict of interest. This committee must consist of at least 3 external members. They must be not employee or subcontractor of the CB. They must have professional experience in palm oil industry, and they must at least annually meet annually with the CB's management representative to review how impartiality procedure are being implemented. So the key message here is that impartiality is not left to internal judgment alone. There must be external oversight to build into the system. Okay, next slide, please. So this slide particularly discuss presented about the impartiality before and after the audit. This slide useful because it shows that impartiality is not just about the moment of the audit. It applies both before and after the audit. Before the audit, the CB and the assessment team, including subcontractor, must maintain independence from the organization for at least 3 years. This means they must have provided they must not have provided the management advice or technical support related to the RSPO certification scope. After the audit, they must remain independent. If you can see the green color of the graphic. Okay, that's mean after the audit, they must remain independent from the UOC at least 1 year. If the 1 year post-audit independence requirement is breached, there will be a penalty where the person in breach is banned in their personal capacity from auditing the RSPO for the next 3 years. All right, let's move to the next slide. Uh, okay, so this is regarding the conflict of interest, previous involvement and conflict references. This slide can be linked to the clause 4.7.6, which it is more specific on who cannot be included in the audit team. The CB must not include individual or employed by a current RSPO client of the CB, individual working with the palm oil trades or commercial association of which the client is a member, or individual with any conflict of interest involving the client or related stakeholder. Okay, so when these slides refer to the previous involvement of reference. The practical implication is that the CB must have actively screened the team composition and prevent any real or perceived conflict from affecting the audit objectivity. All right. So next slide, please. Okay, so this is a proactive declaration. Impartiality relies on transparency before audit begins. The CB must ensure that all engaged personnel declare prior to engagement, report under pressure, and if it is have to be escalated uh, to another level, the executive management must notify RSPO and a accreditation body of any reported pressure. All right. So this slide directly linked to clause 4.7.5. The document require any person or entity engaged by the CB and also CB itself to declare all interests that may affect the certification processes before engaging in any assessment, verification, certification activities. Okay, it also requires that any circumstances that may influence the independency and the confidentiality must be reported to CB executive management, and executive management then must notify RSPO to ensure that and also ensure that it is reported and included in the certification report and the client file. Okay. All right. So this is okay. So you can see some terminology used throughout this presentation. For example, the pillar 5, pillar 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So basically, all this terminology is not same with the official document. So please be aware that this terminology is used to ease the presentation, and it is It is not for you to refer on the presentation itself. For any requirement, you have to refer to the official document itself. All right. So let's move on to the lead auditor rotation. This slide can explain through the requirement 4.7.6. The certification system documents state that a lead auditor cannot serve as the audit team leader for more than two consecutive audit of the same UOC. All right. This restriction is applied even if the lead auditor change CBs. The only exception is where there is a limitation number of lead auditor in the region, and the CB can write to the RSPO and obtain the written exemption from RSPO. Okay, so we do understand there are region that is lack of resources, lack of lead auditor. So in that case, we also provide an exception, provided that you raise right to RSPO and obtain the exemption from RSPO. The rationale here is clear. Repeated use of the same lead auditor may undermine independence, objectivity, and least public confidence in audit impartiality. So we are very particular in managing the impartiality and the conflict of interest, which I presented earlier. Okay, next slide, please. So this slides is talking about hard operational boundaries. Certification body must maintain a strict boundaries between auditing service and dispute resolution. Okay. This slide can be linked to the requirement 4.7.10 of certification system document, which is state that the CB shall not accept contract from its certified client relating to the verification or investigation complaint. In other words, complaint investigation cannot become a separate client contracted activity outside the system safeguard. This protect complaint handling from commercial influence and reinforce that complaint that relate work must remain within the formal RSPO system requirement. Okay, so any complaint received through the CB system must follow a strict feedback mechanism and complaint process outlined in the section C as 6.2.3. All right, next. So this the burden of proof. This slides correspond to the requirement 4.7.7 and 4.7.8, where the CB must have a mechanism to prevent review and take action on declared conflict of interest. Okay, so basically we are talking about impartiality and conflict of interest, and this procedure must be explained to the client before the audit start. Okay, the CB must also keep the record of actual or potential conflict of interest together with the justification for any decision made and action taken for at least 5 years. This record must be available to the AB accreditation body and RSPO upon request. So these slides actually the system is not satisfied with simply declaring that the conflict interest was managed. There must be a documentation, traceable record showing how it was assessed and how it was resolved. Okay. Next slide, please. All right. So for the impartiality section, we can summarize the slide where the summary of key impartiality controls can be summarized in this slide presentation. Okay, where the section is clear to control the point. The three external member committee member, 3 years pre-audit independency, no consulting and or advising, 1 year required period of post-audit independence, breach result in 3 years ban, as I mentioned in previous slides. And for two audits, the maximum consecutive audit a lead auditor can conduct for the same UOC, and 5 years the minimum retention period for all conflict of interest record and justification. Okay, so I think that that's the impartiality section. Perhaps we can move to the next slide, please. Okay, now we move to the section 6.2. Before that, before I move to the 6.2 unit of certification, you can always post your question and my colleague will help to answer all the questions that you might have. Okay, so allow me to just proceed with 6.2 unit of certification. We now move to the unit of certification. This is critical topic before any audit scope, duration, audit planning can be determined. The CB must be clear on what exactly constitute of the UOC. Okay, next slide. All right, so the standard PNC boundary anchors around the mill and its direct supply base. Okay, for standard audit against RSPO PNC, the UOC is defined as mill and supply basis. So this is the scope that we usually have in RSPO PNC, principle and criteria, which comprises a meal and also its supply basis. This boundary strictly encompasses all directly managed land. All right. This includes a state where organization has major holding or management control and legally established estate with allocated proportion of lane and scheme smallholder are firmly inside this boundary. Okay, so this slide should be explained not only definition, but it's a reminder that the certification scope begin with the operational control and relationship between mill and the FFB supply base. Right, so next slide, please. So plantation operating without, so this is a few scenario that we given for you just to understand the unit of certification which defined in the certification system document. Okay. So scenario one is single plantation without integrated mill. This relates to the requirement 6.2.4 of the certification system document, where organization manage a single plantation without an integrated mill, or where the mill is yet established. Okay. The UOC is certified against RSPO PNC, but strictly excluding the mill related requirement. Okay, so this first scenario with a single plantation with yet mill to be established, right? If there is more than one plantation without an integrated mill, then the RSPO management system requirement for group certification apply again, excluding mill related requirements. So this is for multiple plantation again without the integrated mill. Yeah. All right, next. Another one is group certification, which is this shift the accountability and core to the group manager. For group certification, other than ISH standard, the UOC is not physical facility but an entity, the group manager. So, in order to establish this UOC, first of all, they must have the group manager. The supply base encompasses all participating group members, which include independent smallholder or other participating member. The entire UOC is audited against RSPO PNC and also applies the group certifications system document. Okay, next. So let's move to the multi-meal certification. So first of all, this multi-meal certification is actually newly introduced in the certification system document, where if you remember, current certification system 2020 is not mention anything about multi-meal, but in the revised certification system, we embedded the multi-meal requirement in the revised certification system. If you remember, the requirement is was posted in RIF. So we know that the process is not clear. Then we embedded the process to make sure that it is more concise and more understandable in the certification system document 2025. Right. So multi-meal certification allow multiple meal to share a single boundary under exceptional circumstances. So the scenario is more than one meal share the exact same supply base. A member requests a deviation to include multiple meals under single certification. This is exception and explicit approval from RSPO must be obtained prior to the certification. All right. So we now if for your information, we already have a few multi-meal UOC that already been certified under RSPO PNC certification. So to proceed with this multi-meal certification setup, a deviation or approval must be obtained prior to the certification. All right. Let's move to the next slide, please. All right. So, as I mentioned earlier, the RSPO approval for multi-meal UOC require fulfilling eight uncompromised criteria. So, as I mentioned earlier, all the requirement was embedded into certification system. Now, there are few requirements to be fulfilled prior the setup. First, all meal located in the same all mill must located in the same country. Okay, and next one, all mill operates under the same legal jurisdiction or law. And the third one, all mill utilize the same exact supply chain model, IP or M. So if let's say there are two mill, they supposed to have the same exact supply chain model. They can't be one IP, one MP. So that is part of the requirement for RSPO multi-mill UOC setup. Okay, and next, all mill falls under the management of the same parent company. So that is really important that the company, the mill supposed to have same parent company because in the certificate itself mentioned that only one parent company to be used and stated in the certificate. All right. Then the next one, no one-to-one relationship exists between single estate and a specific mill. It is shared supply basis. Okay. And next, FFB delivery transaction occur interchangeably between the supply basis and mill. And next, all mill must be audited during every single cycle. So in sampling calculation, if let's say the UOC have 3 meals, so all meals supposed to be sampled during each of the audit. All right, without left any of the meal being not part of the sample. Next is every individual meal must produce its own GHG calculation report. Okay, so this requirement ensure the continuity, the traceability, and clear accountability when restructuring the certification scope and before get certified. Okay, next. Okay, so multi-meal separation require formal restructuring of existing certificate. So same goes with the setup for the multi-meal. Separation of the multi-meal also applies the same mechanism where need to be getting approval from the RSPO certification. Multi-meal separation, restructure meal or supply base currently under one certificate into separate UOC. So it means that if you can see the graphic from the first circle, there are 2 meal, and then they are deciding to separate into 2 different meal. Okay, so the rule of retention, only one resulting UOC may be retained the existing multi-meal certificate. All right, so the other one can maintain the certificate while the extracted UOC must undergo a completely new initial certification process. Each must be independently comply with RSPO standard. Okay, so this means if the separation of the meal, where previously they are set up with multi-meal and they want to separate, so the one meal will be having the continue the certification cycle, while another extracted UOC must undergo initial audit, unfortunately. Okay, so prerequisite for splitting, as I mentioned earlier, need to submit formal request to RSPO via CB, resolving all the outstanding non-compliance and see and detail of the new certification structure. Okay, so next slide, please. All right. So perhaps this slide, I will pass to Pa Anki to share about the ISH standard required and the rest of the presentation. Over to you, Pa Anki. Thank you.
Thank you, Nadia. Yeah, you already hear from Nadia about the scope of certification for the meal with supply base, only supply base, or only plantation, and the multi-meal certification. And now, how about the independent smallholder standard? So, the independent smallholder group, the scope is defined by the specifically group manager and 100% of the independent smallholder group members that were disclosed to the RSPO. And it is crucial that all group must have been disclosed to RSPO to fall within the certified boundary. And the current process, which is the RSCP version, which is now applicable, the independent smallholder group needs to only complete the LUCA if there is a liability identified during the disclosure. Next slide. Now about the phase approach for the independent smallholder standard, it is still maintaining the same with the 2020 standard, where there are 3 phases for auditing the independent smallholder group. The first one is the eligibility phase with the maximum validity of the certificate for 2 years, and the amount or the volume that can be claimed as credits up to 40% of the group's total estimated FFB production. And the next is the milestone A, with a maximum validity of certificate for 1 year, and the allowable certified volume is increased from 40% to 70% of the estimated production. Please note that the eligibility phase and also the milestone A phase is only can sell the certified products as independent smallholder credits, or we call it IS credits, where they cannot sell the physical as certified FFB. However, they can still sell the physical, the FFB as conventional scheme. And the last is the milestone B, which is the represents full compliance, and it is subject to the general 5-year certificate cycle. It is the same with the PNC, and they can claim up to 100% of the estimated production. Also, they can choose whether they want to sold the products as independent smallholder credits, or sell the physical certified FFB to the certified mills via FFB announcement. Next slide. Now, with regard to the scope in the new certification system, we have new rules to exclude the land if there is a dispute over there for initial certification. However, there is a caveat there, even though that the portion of the land is excluded because of under formal legal action, they still need they still applicable to be checked by the CB in the uncertified management units under section 6.3 of the RSPO certification system. And once it is already have a binding decision by the court, for example, the CB will need to check again whether or not, or the status of this portion of land that is excluded during the initial certification. Next slide. And how about if there is a land in legal dispute, same formal legal dispute within the certified boundary? So the previous slide is uncertified and they want to go for initial certification. And in this slide, how if there is a legal dispute that is go under the formal court, that inside of the certified boundary. So the land and the portion of the land still can remains within the scope of certification, provided it maintains strict fulfillment of the RSPO standard compliance requirements, and the OC must keep the certification body informed annually on the legal status and outcomes. It is crucial also for the certification body, if the certification body are informed by the UOC about this matter, they need to thoroughly check about the legal status and also conduct the necessary public consultation if necessary. Next slide. Now we talk about the certification cycle and also the audit approach under 6.5. Next slide. This is the same for the PNC and independent smallholder standard for milestone B, the 5-year blueprint, where the cycle for certification will last for the 5 years. It's begin with the initial certification and then continue with the annual surveillance audit. There are 4 annual surveillance audit before the cycle back again to the recertification, and will obtain the next cycle of 5 years of certificate. Next slide. For the audit or initial certification, there are audit approach for PNC certification and also independent smallholder certification, where for PNC can be conducted via 1-stage or 2-stage process. However, for the independent smallholder audit, it must conducted through a 1-stage audit process. Next slide. Now, for the annual surveillance audit, it is still the same routine check to verify that documented policies are continuously and adequately implemented by the UOC. However, we have a strict timing rule in the new RSPO certification system, where the annual surveillance audit must be conducted within 4 months prior to the original license expiry date. Later, the part 3, which is Friday, we will speak about the license management, where in the license management there is a requirement on how to request the time extension, and in the time extension it is now formally written that the time extension can only be granted if annual surveillance audit has been conducted within the time frame, which is following this timing rule, the 4 months prior to the original license expiry date, and it is applicable for PNC and also independent smallholder standard. This means that if you have the CB haven't conduct the annual surveillance audit, you can still request, but considering the annual surveillance audit hasn't been conducted, the RSPO Secretariat will reject the request for time extension. Next slide. Now, there is a risk if delay or not conducting annual surveillance audit as per timeline. If the ASA or the annual surveillance audit is not conducted in time, the CB shall immediately suspend the certificate, and there is a 6-month time period to reinstate the certificate, where the ASA must be conducted within 6 months of the suspension, including the successful closure of all major NC. The ultimate consequences is if within this 6 month there is no annual surveillance audit conducted, then a full recertification audit is mandatory to continue to be able for the UOC to continue the certification. Next slide. And for the recertification, it is the same prior 4 months to the original expiry date. However, if the recertification audit has been conducted within these 4 months and there is still need time to close the NC, for example, or prepare the report, the CB can request for a maximum 3 months time extension. However, it's the same rules. The time extension can only be granted if, for this case, recertification audit has been conducted. If the recertification audit hasn't been conducted, then unfortunately, RSPO will deny the request from the CB on the time extension. Next slide. Now, this is the mode for the audit. It is written in the RSPO certification system that there is an announced audit, where it's a normal routine audit, and there is an announced or short notice audits, where the notice is provided a maximum 3 days in advance to accommodate legal and also logistical challenges. Next slide. So the 3 days rule is for because the RSPO acknowledge if there is a legal and also logistical realities in operating plantation and mills. Therefore, the CB is required to inform the UOC of the audit details no more than 3 days in advance. Please note, it is written in the document system that there is a penalty for if the UOC refuse for the CB to conduct the unannounced audit. So the rejection by the UOC without valid justification will result the CB immediately suspend the certificate. And the reinstatement of the certificate is only possible upon the full completion of the unannounced audit. Next slide. Now, what triggers the unannounced audit. So there are two specific scenarios written in the document. The first one is if there is a need to conduct a special audit. This is specifically to investigate a formal complaint against the UOC through official RSPO complaint system. Usually, this is following the directive from the RSPO complaints panel with regards to the UOC that is under complaint. And the second is triggered by the CB risk assessment, where if the CB risk assessment identifies factors that threaten the integrity of the certificate, they also may trigger the unannounced audit or the short notice audit to the UOC that they audited. Okay, next slide. Now we talk about the pre-certification activities and also the audit planning, which is under 6.6, under 6.9, under written in the RSPO Certification System 2025. Next slide. So the certification pathway is begin with the application review. It's a mutual alignment and also validation. The next is the scope and duration, where the CB defining boundaries and also defining the time. And then to strategic the synchronization for the audit planning and also the conduct of the desk review for following the pre-audit requirements in the RSPO certification system. Next slide. Phase one, or the beginning of the process, is the application handshake, where the CB provides the RSPO standards and guidance documents to the UOC, certification application form that need to be filled by the UOC, also general terms and conditions, and also complaints and appeals procedure that the CB has as their internal procedure, and the UOC also need to submit or provide the information to the CB with regards to the RSPO membership, the disclosure information, the remediation and compensation procedure status, if any, and also the list of contractors, prior, previous land users, and also the site map. Please note for the CB that for the disclosure and the RSCP status, although you already obtained the information from the grower members based on the RSPO certification system, you need to also get the confirmation from the RSPO secretariat. This is just to confirm that there is no information left behind and you can go the audit without any interruptions in the future. Next slide. Now, the certification body assessment based on the information that obtained, they confirm the CB will check if they have the sufficient internal resources, personnel, and also time, defining the time to conduct the certification activities, and also check whether the UOCs have information to start with the audit process. For example, if the RSCP status is still ongoing, for example, still in the lookup process, then the CB is not allowed to go with the public announcement, because the public announcement only can be published if the concept note has already submitted to the CB. Now, in the RSPO Certificate System 2025, it's not only the remediation, the compensation, the concept note, but also later it relates to the compensation and also remediation plan that is already approved to issue the certificate. And also the CB will check the or conduct the impartiality verification. This is back to the previous slide in the beginning of the webinar, where the CB need to follow their procedure to check whether there is a conflict of interest with the UOC and the audit team or not. Next slide. Now, the CB need also draw the audit boundaries. The core or the foundation is to confirm the applicable RSPO standard, whether it's PNC or ISH, and also the NIs if applicable. And also the next one is to define or check the supply chain model, if it is a IP, MB, or IP and MB, both combination IP and MB, list of the supply bases and TBP status. And the next one is to check the external dependencies, where if is there any outsource for non-processing activities, for example, transportation and external bulking. Specific for this, the CB may conduct a specific risk assessment to determine if site visits to independent third-party contractors are required during the audit. Next slide. Now, considering all of the information that is obtained, and also checking the scale and the structure, the size of the OC, number of supply base, number of workers, and management complexity, plus environmental information context, for example, terrain, is there any heat exists, or is there any HEV presence in the supply base or estates, and also the operational risk. The CB will calculate the total audit days. Please note that it is written in the document that the for audit 1 mil and 1 estate is still the same with the previous version. It is a minimum for 9 days. However, looking at if there is a difference in, for example, a multi-mil, 3 mils with supply base, then the we will calculating all of this information to define how many total audit days or main days that is required to audit the UOC. Next slide. Now, the CB also can customize the planning, where the CB can synchronize to maximize efficiency with the RSP, can synchronize the RSPO audits with the other existing certification frameworks at the client's discretion, and also considering that the CBs have the resources to do that. For example, synchronize with the QMS audit, EMS audit. Also, for example, in the case of Indonesia, perhaps to synchronize with the ISPO and MSPO in Malaysia. Next slide. Now, after that, the CB will check the document review, examining the UOC documentation, submission mandated by the RSPO, and also conduct the stakeholder consultation. It is begin with the conduct of the public announcement to gather preliminary evidence from the relevant stakeholders to identify potential compliance issue early, and also to conduct this review on external research via digital and traditional media resources, for example, websites, news, journals, and social media, to inform or to get information about the UOC risk that is perhaps available. Next slide. The desk review also required to be conducted for the pre-audit. Right now, in the current version, there is a requirement for the pre-audit, where the UOC, it is written that UOC must submit the pre-audit information to the CB within 7 days prior to agreed pre-audit date. So the pre-audit is a desk review assessment conducted by the CB. And after the pre-audit date is completed, there is a window period for the 3 months for the CB to conduct the on-site visit. It could be 1 month after the pre-audit. It could be 2 months or 2.5 months after the pre-audit, but it cannot go beyond the 3 months after the pre-audit. So the 3 months period is a maximum period to conduct the on-site audit after the pre-audit is completed. Next, okay, I think that is the end of the presentation. Now I will pass it back to the Nadia to have the question and answer session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Banki, for the presentation. Yes, we are already in the question and answer session. So, from the question and answer box, I can see that we have 7 open question. Perhaps we can go one by one. All right. And I can see it's increasing from 7 to 8. And if let's say any of you don't you think that your question is quite complex, you can just raise your hand. We will allow you to talk and you can just ask the question verbally. All right. But for now, let's just take the question from the question and answer box. First question we have here is, sorry, it is anonymous. We don't know who is posting this question, but he is asking how should these land dispute issues be addressed during the HGU or land title renewal process. So perhaps this require a bit of context. Maybe who asked this question can just raise hand and we will allow you to talk and ask the question.
Yeah, Nadia, while waiting, I think I will try to answer, but considering it is quite general, I believe my answer will be general as well.
Yeah.
So I think in the Indonesia context, because it is mentioned the HGU, which is only applicable in Indonesia, I think if there is a land dispute during the renewal process, first thing the BPN or the authorities that is issued the HGU certificate will not issue the renewal land title or the HGU until it is resolved. So it is important to also acknowledge the process that is under the local authorities on this, and the CB must also uh, uh, get a full, complete information on what is the status of the process and is there any action plan for the process, etc., etc. Thank you.
Okay, I hope that's a clear explanation from Pa Anki. Maybe we can move to the next question. This is anonymous as well. According to the class 6.6.1, it is stated that during the review, the audit teams examines the UOC's documentation and submission as required by the RSPO and listed in its information system. Is there a specified list or type of data that must be submitted to ensure consistency among all CBs? So I guess this is related to the pre-audit, yeah, Anki.
Yeah, thank you, Nadia. Yes, it is correct. At this moment, actually, the information that is available, there is a, so if the CB remember and also the grower member, remember during if you submit or initiate the audit application, there is a preliminary checklist in Prisma currently. So there is the minimum. However, I will also inform about relation to the metrics template. So previously we have the metrics template where the UOC or the CH certificate holder need to submit the metrics template to the CB to verify the information, and it is also submitted to the RSPO during the license request submission. Now, in the RSPO certification 2025, there is no longer need to fill the metrics template. However, with regards to the pre-audit letter, we are going to publish the U part or the universal pre-audit requirements or report template for the UOC to fill and submit to the CB check, and later the CB also submit it back to the RSPO during the license submission. So whatever information that is required in the pre-audit report template, it is need to be filled by the CH and also verified by the CB during the audit.
Okay, thank you for Anki for the very good explanation on the pre-audit. Next, we have a question from Adriana. Hi, Adriana. So Adriana is asking, did you define the pre-audit information? Is this the pre-audit assessment? And another follow-up question, is Prisma ready to receive the pre-audit information now?
Yeah, I think the answer for first question is the for the question. It is there will be a pre-audit report template where the UOC need to fill all of the required information and submit to the CB for the CB further check. And with regards to the Prisma, yes, in the Prisma now is still in the development to conduct the pre-audit inside of Prisma. However, there will be an interim measures where as I mentioned, the ECH need to submit it to of the platform Prisma platform via email to the CB, and the CB later during the license request submission need to upload the pre-audit report template in Prisma.
Okay, thank you,
Thank you.
Anki. All right, let's move to the next question. Does RSPO not specify the number of Mayday for a pre-audit? This is to ensure that all certification CV apply the same standard. Perhaps I can take this question. So basically, we don't specify explicitly in the certification system on how many mandates to be taken for the pre-audit now. But we do mention that the minimum is 9 mandate for the on-site audit, but that is excluding the pre-audit requirement. Okay. I hope that's clear. Now let's move to Laura's question. Please confirm, in the case of CH recertification, if the CB audit was carried out before the 12 months, they requested a 3 months extension but were unable to effectively complete the corrective action. How long do they have to obtain recertification after the certificate expiration date?
Okay, I can take this up, Nadia.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Laura, for the questions. Yes, for example, the recertification audit has been conducted as per the required timeline within the 4 months window period. However, there is some cases that the CB and also the CH request for a 3-month time extension. For example, the expiry if in on 31st of December 2025 and the 3 months extension until end of March 2026. If let's say until the end of the time extension, the CB are unable to provide the certification decision, for example, due to this NC still open, then the CB, the CS need to close the NC. However, there is no a written timeline on that. However, after if let's say the certification decision is taken after the 3 months period, then uh, the CB need to issue the certificate using the new cycle based on the dates of the certification decision is provide or issued.
Thank you, Pak Angki. I hope Laura is clear with the explanation. Next, let's move on to the next question. Will we receive the document or presentation? Yeah, basically we will share all the slides presentation and the recording after the webinar ends. Okay. Next, are non-conformity allowed to be raised during the pre-audit? Perhaps I can take this question, Pak Anki. So, is in simple sentence, pre-audit finding can be identified and documented, but formal NC are raised during the audit, not the pre-audit stage. So, we shall inform the client the audit team's finding, including any NC, and the closing meeting record must include the list of NC raised with the reference with the specific indicator. So actually, those findings are used to inform the risk. Are used to inform the risk assessment and the duration of the on-site audit. Yeah, I hope that's answered the question. Next, we get a question from Shima Yusufi. RSPO certificate is important for broker too. Okay, maybe this is quite generic and related to SEC, yeah?
Yeah, I think let me take that. So
Mhm.
thanks, Hima. I'm trying to understand the broker in a common certificate RSPO certification context. We are calling it as a trader. So as mentioned, the session tonight is to discuss about the RSPO PNC and ISH standard, and does not specifically going through the supply chain certification document. Uh, but on the context of supply chain, yes, it depends. So if let's say the trader is taking physical possession, then you need to be certified. Otherwise, alternatively, if you are not handling physical material, you just become a you just become a paper trader. You just source something, but the material delivered directly to your buyer without keeping in your warehouse. That eligible you to have only the trader license. Yeah, so I hope that answer your concern about the brokerage. Thank you.
Thank you, Shazali. Let's move on to the next question. So the question is, how about minor nonconformities or major repeated nonconformities? For the new group undergoing an initial audit, will all previous NC be carried out? Will it be possible for all these complexes to revert to a multi-mill arrangement in the future?
Okay, I will take this, Nadia. I think for the first question with regards to the NC, I will need further information because you mentioned about the repeated major and also the repeated minor NC, and also that for the group that is undergoing an initial audit. I think because it is the initial audit, so the previously there has been no audit, and therefore there is no major or NC that is issued. So I think for the initial audit, all of the major is new NC. And for the independent smallholder standard, there is no minor NC. All NC is categorized as a major NC. And also for the next questions, will it be possible for all these complexes to revert to a multi-mill arrangement? I think I will also need context for these questions. If the the quest the one who questioned this question can provide the more context. If you are not reluctant to open your mic, you can also provide the context in the Q&A. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Pak Angki. Okay, we got a statement, I guess. I have problems with the sound. I cannot hear you. Okay, so if you have a problem with your audio, perhaps you can pose again your question so we can answer the question through the chat box or live during the session. Next, Laszlo. Hi, Laszlo. Laszlo is asking, is the RSPO PNC 2024 generic checklist ready?
Yeah, I will take that. Yes, Lazlo, the PNC generic checklist is currently under the final stage. It will be released hopefully in the next 1 or 2 weeks, maybe maybe in the next 2 weeks lah, because we are having Hari Raya in the next 2 weeks, so probably after that. But it will be available before the before the effective date of the PNC 2024. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Bu Tuti. Bu Tuti is asking, three series webinar will cover all topics in RSPO certification system. That, yeah, Bu Tuti. So far, all the 6 session will be covering for the specifically for RSPO, PNC, and ISH certification system document. We already divided the session into 3 parts. So the next session will focus on the processes, and the part 3 will focus on the license management. So basically, yeah, all the webinar will cover for RSPO certification system, PNC, and ISH. Thank you.
Nadia,
Next.
I think I have an addition to that
Yeah,
for Ibu
Bangki,
Tuti
please.
question. Thank you, Nadia. And however, Ibu Tuti, it will not cover all of the requirements because some of the requirements that is still maintained or the same. I think we can skip that and only focusing on the key changes that uh, a bit different from between the 2020 and 2025 certification system. However, if you are having any questions with regards to the topics that are not presented, please feel free to also post the question to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Bangki. All right. Next, we have the question related to universal pre-audit template for ISH. Has this template been established? Perhaps Bangki can provide an update regarding the
Yeah,
template. Thanks.
thank you. Yeah, currently the pre-audit report template for ISH still in the development, the discussion between the IMEL, the certification, and also the smallholder unit within the RSPO Secretariat. And once it is finalized, we will also inform the relevant stakeholder about the pre-audit report template. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bangki. All right, yeah, if let's say you don't want to post your question in the Q&A, perhaps you can raise your hand and we can allow you to talk, and you can just ask your question verbally, yeah. So next question, does the RSPO standard encompass the requirement of the EUDR?
Yeah, allow me to take that. Yes, thanks for the question. It is not specifically mentioned in the RSPO PNC certification standard about the compliance to EUDR. However, it will be addressed in the RSPO supply chain certification requirement. Just to add on, RSPO is preparing the RSPO information system platform, which called Prisma, to have a specific module to address EUDR. However, it is currently in development. So that is the generic context that I can provide at the moment. Development for the EUDR compliance module in the Prisma is still being developed, and we will socialize when it is ready. Thank you.
Thank you for answering the question. I hope that's clear. Now let's move on. Surveillance or recertification audit must be conducted within 4 months prior to the license expiry date. However, if the audit is delayed after license expiry date due to the post-disaster recovery in the UOC area, for instance, may an extension be granted with the supporting evidence?
Yeah, we'll take on that, Nadia. Thank you. Yes, I think there is a case, for example, in Indonesia with regards to the flood. There is a heavy flood in Sumatra Island, and some of the independent smallholders are heavily affected, and also some also the grower and mill members as well. So for that, the RSPO, considering the situation and also the limitation to conduct the audit, we pose the 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 guidance on how to assess the need to continue the annual surveillance audit. So the CB, we can later inform you the specific information in our RSPO website that talks about this matter, and you can follow what it is written or steps that is written there. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Anggi. I hope that's clear. Now we have a question related to the multi-meal group. Okay, the question is if the multi-meal group wants to change to a complex basis, how will the audit cycle be handled? Will it follow the existing cycle or require recertification? Additionally, how will the funding be treated? Will they be carried over to all complexes? Okay, maybe
Yeah,
we need
yeah,
some context here on this. Or Shazali, you want to add?
yeah. Maybe I can try to answer. Sorry, sir, I don't get your name. But I think this is the second time we already Nadia already explained earlier about this one. So let me just put into a brief context. So I believe your questions here is talking about the existing certification under a multi-meal module, but they decided to split. Maybe they have 3 meals at the moment under a multi-meal certification scope, but now they decided to go individual certification for every of the meal and their own supply basis. So in that particular context, we are going to allow the certification, the unit of certification to hold and continue the current certificate and undergoing the scope reduction. It is quite technical explanation, but the other 2 meals, they need to undergo initial certification because they don't have any certificates at the moment. So from the 3 meals, they need to decide which meal are going to continue the current certificates. And this meal, let's say the meal 3 will going to continue the certificates. Hence, the meal 3 will undergo the scope reduction audit. And meal 1 and meal 2 here, they're going for independent scope of certification, will undergo initial certification and initial certification. So the certification cycle will be different between meal 1 and meal 1, 2 and meal 3. Because meal 3 is going to continue and riding the existing certification cycle, which probably only valid for the next 2 or 3 years. But the meal 1 and meal 2 will be having a full fresh 5 years certificate validity. Okay, and with regard to the NC, the findings that previously hold by all the 3 meals under the multi-site certification, under meal the multi-meal certification, meal 3 will be responsible to address all the NC that carries, but the CB that are going to audit meal 1 and meal 2 under the initial certification should take the open or the pending non-conformity raised in the previous audit as part of their risk assessment. So I hope that answer you. If you have further context, feel free to add so that we can discuss accordingly. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Shazali, for the answer. Yeah, Laszlo, we aware that the CB will need it for the transition, so we will provide an update accordingly related to that matter. And then we have a question from Diana Gonzalez, but the question is not quite clear, but I try to read it first on relation of ISH cumulative audit, give that requirement are audited cumulatively, in bracket, milestone A include eligibility plus milestone A indicator. What advice would you give to group organizing their documentation to avoid redundancy of information gaps. Okay, perhaps Diana Gonzalez can, if you are comfortable to share your question verbally, would be great for us to understand the context of your question.
Yeah, and Diana, maybe if you are not comfortable to explain in English, maybe you can speak in Spanish because we have Diego here to help us interpreting
Yeah.
in Spanish. Yeah, thank you very much.
I think while waiting, just to provide more context or information with the phases for independent smallholder standard. So the difference between eligibility, there is a difference between eligibility, milestone A and milestone B, where uh, most of the indicators, but not all, for the eligibility is about commitment by the independent smallholder group. And the milestone A is about the training that need to be attended by the group manager and also the smallholder member. And the milestone B is about implementing the training and also the requirement for the RSPO standard and also the monitoring. That is the sequence or the difference between eligibility or milestone A and milestone B. And I think considering that difference in the phases, so that there will be no, there is a minimum risk to overlap the requirement between eligibility milestone A and milestone B. If that is the question that you ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Panki. Diana, if you wanted to explain more detail, you can just post a question, post that question through email, or you can just post in this Q&A. Perhaps we can take last question from Laura. Okay, then we can end the session for today. Laura is asking related to ISH. For ISH, when talking about having a maximum of 50 hectare, for example, the standard refer to the planted area or the total of area of the plot or farm. Some of them have 20 hectare planted with palm, but their total area is 60 hectare and they are not going to expand the palm plantation. Can they be considered as ISH?
Okay, thank you, Lara, for the questions. Yeah, in general, in generic standard, the threshold for the independent smallholders is 50 hectares. However, there is also mm, different number considering the national interpretation or the local laws within specific countries. And for example, you some of them have 20 hectares of planted with oil palm. However, the total area or land that they have is 60, which is above the threshold. So my next question is, what is the rest of the area or the the the, the hectares is planted with the commodities of the that is planted over the 40 hectares? Do they have the plan to make a new planting, for example? You mentioned that there is that they are not going to expand, so this means that the rest of the 40 hectares is going to be planted with another commodities. I don't know, for example, bananas or even the the pineapple, for example. I think for this we only consider the area that is planted with oil palm. However, this specific smallholder will be considered as high risk, as the CB need to make sure that the if this plant another 30 hectares with the oil palm, it is okay. However, it is not going to be okay if they will plant all of the 60 hectares with the oil palm. Therefore, the CB need to also maintain the record that this independent smallholder actually have uh, land more than threshold of 50 hectares, and you need to assess whether or not the remaining area is planted with oil palm or with another commodities. Thank you.
Thank you. And should we take another last question, Pak, from Budhuti? Budhuti is asking related to the previous question. When in the eligibility phase, the member should sign the commitment for such RSPO requirement. Should be any evidence for the auditor to ensure that they have already understood prior what they have signed?
Thank you, Buluti, for the questions. I think to assess, Pasas, if I may,
Please, go ahead.
okay. I think for the CB, can always make a interview with the smallholder member during the audit to assess whether or not the smallholder member who signed the declaration already understand the commitments that they sign. And the CB has always made have their discretion to raise NC if they think it is a failure to understand or to there is a gaps between what RSPO standard required and also the implementation during the audit. Pasas, do you have any addition on that?
No, that's clear, Anki. I have just want to address one question from Najwa Zarin, but the question is not in the Q&A. It is in the chat instead. So he's asking about for multi-mill certification, is there any limits in the number of supplying estates? No, there is no limits for multi-mill certification. It can be 3 mills sharing one supply basis because probably the supply base is big enough to sell or to supply to 3 mills. There is no threshold, but the CB, the certification body, should be in position to evaluate whether this is legit. I mean, this is the real case, actual case, or it is just for some purpose of for some other purposes. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think that's going to be the last question for our session today. Thank you again. If let's say you have any other question, please feel free to reach us out through certification email or our email personally. So you can ask any question related or any raising question that you might have. Okay, so I think that's the end of our session. Thank you once again to everyone for your time, attention, and active participation throughout today's session. Okay, so we hope this session has helped provide a clearer understanding of the key fundamental of the RSPO, PNC, and ISH certification system 2025. Please continue to refer to the full official document. You may get it in the through our RSPO website. Thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you in the next webinar session. We will be having another session for part 2 and part 3 in this week, which is on 11 and 13. Yeah. So please join us. But I would like to emphasize once again that this webinar series is only focusing on RSPO PNC, ISH, and certification system. We are not going to cover, unfortunately, for the supply chain certification system. Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good day, have a good night, and see you again in the next webinar session. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.